Hey guys, and welcome back to part 2 of the Django tutorial series on my channel. In this tutorial, we'll be working with databases and how to add data into it. It's a bit special in Django. It's not quite the same as normal Python, so that's what we'll be doing today. The first thing I want to do is come into your hub of your website, as I was describing last time. This folder, not your app, but your actual project, come in here and open up your settings file. We're just going to be looking at this just briefly. So there are a lot of stuff here, and this is all made by Django, don't worry. But there are a few things that we might want to edit. So the first thing I want to do, just look at here, is here we have something called debug equals true. So if you run your server on Django and you see that there's an exception and it gives you like this whole like debugging thing, it says trace back error and stuff, and it tells you where the error is. That's because in your settings, debug is equal to true. If you don't want that, then you can say debug is equal to false. But debug is equal to true is a bit helpful, at least for now, because it allows us to, if you ever make a mistake, then it'll actually it'll tell us how to fix our mistakes. So now in installed apps, I had it there for some reason, but I don't know, maybe I did it last time. But in this installed app list, you want to add the name of your app. In my case, the name of that is test, as you can see right there. So you want to add that to your installed apps list here. There's a lot of other stuff, and we're going to be using some of them today, but you want to add this there. Okay, now we're going to scroll down a bit, and you'll see this part called databases. We're not going to edit anything, at least for now, but this will just help you understand a little bit about this. Now this is a dictionary right here, and we have two things. We're creating an engine and we're creating a name. So this engine is telling us what language or what form we're going to be creating our database in. And if you want to run SQLite 3, you can do that. But if you want to use like another SQL language, which is a reason why a lot of people use Django, you can actually change this part after django.db.backends to another language like MySQL. That'll work just fine. Or you can say Oracle or whatever you want, really. There's a lot of things you can check on the documentation. I'm just going to be using SQLite 3 because that's the default for Python, and it's just because it's already there. Why change it? So after, unless you want to, but if you're following along with the video, then you can just leave it as SQLite 3. Okay, the next thing we have is name, and this is creating our database file. So you don't need to know all this, but as you can see here, we have the name called db.sqlite3. So when we make our table and do like migrations and stuff, we'll talk about that later, it's going to link it all to a file called db.sqlite3. If you want to change this to app.sqlite3 or test.sqlite3, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to leave it as is because it's the default. There's no reason to change that right now. Okay, so we have a little bit of a look at the settings area. We'll come back here later on when we want to. Okay, now let's actually create our model. Or actually our table, which is called a model. So let's go into our application file. It's different from the one we just did. And in here, in the models file, you want to open that, and this is where you're going to be creating your databases. So you'll see that we have an import here called from Django.db. If you don't know already, DB stands for database, import models. So you can already tell that we're going to just be creating tables here and stuff, but it's a little bit different than normal SQL. If you don't know SQLite or SQL or how to do any of that database stuff, then check out the SQLite 3 tutorial video on my channel, because then you'll understand this stuff a lot better. Right now the syntax is a bit different on how I'm going to do it, but if you understand how to work with databases, then this will be very easy. Okay, so instead of doing like that create table statement and then putting the name of your table and all the columns and data types and stuff, what we're going to do is create a class. This is pretty much our table. This in Django language, this is our table. So I'm going to name my table form, because I'm going to be creating a form that asks for your name and age. And this class form will inherit from models.model. And remember, we imported models up here. So this is pretty much telling Django that this class is no ordinary class. It's actually a table in disguise. Okay, now that we've created our table name in class format, but it's actually a table, remember that, we can now create our columns. So the first column I said I wanted was name. So I'm going to call it name is equal to, and let's say we want a character field. I'm going to say models.car field. This stands for character field. And within these parentheses, I'm going to say max length equals 100. There are different types of fields you can do. For example, I could do a character field. I can do a text field. That's for like longer pieces of text. Like a character field is good for something like a name, but a text field would be good for something like an essay or a blog post or an announcement or something like that that's very long. And within these parentheses, we're defining the maximum length. That's pretty simple. Whatever is put in this column has a max length of 100. Okay, now we're going to create our other column called age, and this will be a models.integer field because we're going to be taking in ages as integers, and we're not going to put anything as parameters for now. So what we've done here is created a table called form. We have two columns, name and age. Name is accepting is a character field, and it has a maximum length of 100. And age is a column that accepts integer because it's an integer field. Now you'll see a lot of people use text field instead, and the difference between car and field and text field is that car field is for smaller things, text field is for bigger things. And also another thing I didn't mention, for car field, if you're using car field, inside these parentheses, it is required that you define a maximum length. For text fields, it is not required. So that's why I defined it here. I actually don't need to, or like I wouldn't need to, but because this is how Django wants it to be, you have to define a maximum length within these parentheses for a character field. For text fields, different, but for this we do need one. Okay, so now we've created our table, created the columns, data types, and everything. There's one more thing I'd like to do. Let's create a function within our table called string, or double underscore string double underscore, and then it's just going to return self.name. And essentially all this is a function that'll return self.name. It's pretty self-explanatory. A lot of people use this. You don't have to, but I just put it there for good practice. And alright, so that's good. Now let's save that. You should have something a bit like this in your models.py right now. Okay, next what you want to do is come to urls.py. And you see we have these URLs from last time. We're going to add one more. And first what we're going to do is name the URL. So it's going to be regular expression. I'll just name it database/. And then we're going to have a function here, which we're about to define very soon. So first thing we need to do is import a new Django thing, special Django thing. We're going to say from Django.view.generic.list import list view. Alright, so we actually, wait, hold on. I think it's views. Yeah, okay, sorry. It's Django.views with a S, .generic.list import list view. So what list view is, it's a function that allows us to list out the data in a database in a nice fashion. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, after my URL, I'm going to create the function list view, or I'm going to do the function list view. I'm going to put some stuff in the parameters right now. Let me put it in first, and then I'll explain it. So we're going to say query set equals form.objects.all. Alright, hold on. And after form.objects.all, we're going to say template equals form/form.html. Okay, so what this is, inside the parameter of this function, Django needs to know what it's going to list out. Like, you can't just call list view with nothing. You have to tell it what it's going to list out, and that's what query set equals is. So we say query set equals form.objects.all, and actually we have to import the form class from our models.py. I actually forgot to do that. So we're just going to say from text.models import form. Okay, so now we have that class in here. So we're saying take all the objects in the form class, and if you remember, form is actually a table, but it's in a class. Like, it's disguised as a class, but in reality it's a table. So when we're saying the objects of the form class, all the objects are actually the inputs in the table. So that's what it's going to be listing out. And then we define something called template equals, and this pretty much tells it like how it wants us, how we want to display the data. So it's, oh wait, okay, there we go. Oops. All right, so now we have that done and dusted. So we've created our URL at /database, and we're going to list out all the objects in the form class, which is actually a table. So all the objects in the form class are actually all the inputs of the table, and we're going to put them in this template, which we'll create here soon. Okay, so we have that, and here we created our model right here with our class form, which is just a table called form, and we created our different columns here, and we just created a function there to return the name. Alright, so now that we created a function, and created our table and linked our table to a URL, we're going to create that template I was talking about. Let me just delete this right here. So let's create a directory or folder called form, and within that we're going to create a new, well, I guess I have to do this again. I'm going to call it form, and let me just go to, CMD. Alright, there we go. So let me just change this fairly quickly. CD, what is it? Test. CD temp. And then let's just say CD form. Let's move form.txt to a HTML file. And okay, there we go. Very well. Alright, so now we have an HTML file, and here we're going to actually create all the stuff. There, okay. So what we're going to do here is first we're going to declare our doc type HTML, body, and then we're going to run a Jinja logic statement. And if you watched the last tutorial, you know what I'm doing here, so hopefully you go watch that one first. But we're going to enclose it within curly braces, and then we're going to put 2% signs, and then in the middle we're going to make our logic. So just follow along here. I'm going to say for form in object list h1 in these. So we're going to put it in a variable form.name. Let's end this for loop by end4. Okay, so what we're doing here is, well, this object list is actually not a list that we created manually. It's a list that Django creates, and oh wow, I should know that. Okay, regardless, this is a list that Django creates that contains all the objects of the class, which is, as I said before, all the inputs of the table, and we're assigning form to every list there, and then we're going to take the name in that list. So if you wanted to imagine this like a SQL table, we would have object list is just every row in the table. So we're assigning form to every row in the table, and then we're returning the name. We're returning that intersection point between the name column and that form row. So that's what this is. Let's save that. So actually very cool. You can use a lot of different languages inside brackets. I did not know that at all. Okay, so now that we have that done, we're going to do something called migrations. And no, we're not going to move somewhere. It's a Django thing. And we're going to run python manage.py. And then we're going to say make migrations. Okay, so if we enter this, alright, I came with an error. Let's see, what is the error? View must be a callable or a list tuple in the case of include. Okay, I will fix this here in a second. Okay, so there are a few things that I realized I did wrong. Oops. I don't know if this is all that was causing the problems, but let's just do it here. I don't think we actually need this .list here. I think we can say Django.views.generic import list view, so that's that. And then after this, I realized that we actually need to run listview.asView and then put in our parameters, because otherwise it won't work properly. So change those parts of your code so you can change that .list and make a .asView before you put in these parameters. And also, it's not actually a template, it's template_name. So those were a few problems in my urls.py. Let's see if those were the only problems. I don't actually think they are. But let's try python manage.py, make migrations. Alright, so it actually did work. That is just brilliant. Forget all those. So what we have here is it's creating a migration for tests. You don't need to know this, but it's going into our migrations folder, which I'll show you here in a second, and it's creating that model form. So we created it manually, but Django has to kind of create it in its own way, and I'll show you that here. So it says when you say make migrations, it'll just check for any new databases you've made, and it'll officially make them. So if we go into our migrations folder within that test tab, you'll see this initial thing. And this is just a rewritten version of what we made, except this is something that Django made. So we don't ever really have to look at this. I'm just showing this to you so you know how it works. But as you can see, we have a name, we have a form name, we have column name and age. And then you also notice that we have a column called ID. And we didn't actually create a column called ID. This is something that Django does by itself, which is very helpful, as you'll see later on. So this is just kind of rewriting what we wrote before. It's just Django's special way of doing it. And now we can come back to command prompt, and we can say python manage.py migration. Is it migration with the S? Okay, I think it's actually with no S. .py migration. Alright, it's still not working. Alright, whatever. So now that we have this done, this should be working very well. Okay, so what we've done so far is created our database, and we've linked it to a URL and everything, so it looks very nice. Now, how do we actually add data to our database? What I'm going to be doing now is introducing a brand new concept that you might not understand at all, but it is very, very cool, trust me. It's called the admin. So you're pretty much the administrator of your website, and Django did this really cool thing. They helped you out a lot. What they did was they made a website. When you start an app, it automatically makes a website for you. You don't have to code any of it. You can, but you don't have to, and I won't. But this website allows you to do a lot of things, and one of those things is adding data to your database. It also lets you look at your database, and it lets you to create super users and everything. It is very nice. So what we want to do here is let's go to this admin.py file. We have not touched this before, but we will now. So if we go into this application which we're working with, and we go to this admin file, you'll see it just says Django.contrib admin. So it says register your models here, and remember, a models is just a special way of saying tables. So what we're gonna import that table. We're gonna say from test.models, right? Yeah, test.models, import form, not off from form. Okay, now what we need to do is, all right, let me just check. Sorry. So what we need to do is run a function, and what we're gonna say is admin.site.register, and in the parentheses we're gonna put the name of our model or our table. In my case, it's called form because that's the table I created. So what we're saying is that to this admin site, we're going to register a database called form, and you'll see what that is soon. You may be very confused with this admin stuff. This is kind of like magical thing Django does. It's like a really nice website, and it pretty much allows you to edit the database without actually coming back into the code. So that is pretty helpful. So all you need to do is run this admin.site.register form. And yeah, so now when we visit the admin site, you'll see the form group there, hopefully, unless there are any mistakes. And let's go back to this URLs file, and you'll see it. Does it say it here? All right, hold on. Let me go to the website one. Let me go to this URLs. And here you can see it also imports admin. It says from Django.contrib import admin. After that, we can say admin.auto-discover. And then we can just put empty parentheses there. This is just, it's just some admin stuff right there. Okay, so now that we have saved all of our things and hopefully everything's working nicely, let us run our server. So I'm going to say python manage.py run server, and assuming this works correctly, you will see something very, very magical and mysterious. Let's go 127.0.0 file blah 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 blah. I don't think you can actually see my URL right now, but after that that 127.0.0.1 colon whatever slash, you're gonna put in admin. If you do that, this is still not working. Let's see, what is the problem? 14 unapplied. Oh, okay. So it says 14 unapplied migrations, and that's what I was talking about before. manage.py migrate. Okay, so now it was working. Oh, sorry. Before I was running migrations and migration. Okay, so if you run your server and you see this, you have 14 unapplied migrations, what you need to do is you actually have to run python manage.py migrate. So I was actually trying to do this before, but I forgot how to do it, but I just remembered. So now that admin website and your form table and all these different things here, they're all now working once you type in python manage.py migrate. Before that, you wanted to create that migration here. So there's a lot of random stuff I ran, but all you have to do is python manage.py make migrations, which you did before, and then python manage.py migrate, which we did just now. Okay, so now let's run the server. .py run server, and now you'll see it says no issues, and it doesn't say anything like you have 14 unapplied migrations. If you do see something like you have unapplied migrations, then you should go ahead and do the python manage.py migrate command. Okay, let's go back and all right, 5000, and we'll put /admin. Hopefully this works, and it's still not working. Let's see. Is there any problem? Oops. I'm using 5000 port. It's actually 8000. Alright, so it might be different for different people. Okay, so here it is. The grand Django administration. We've come this far, but So you can type in random usernames, password, but it won't work. You actually have to register yourself on your computer. So what you're going to do is, you can exit that right now. I was just doing that to show you how cool it is and how it works. But what you need to do is you have to run another cmd command, python manage.py create super user. So we're going to create like a count, I guess, that'll allow us to actually use that admin page. So we're gonna create a super user, and our username, I'm just gonna say, is Billy. My email address is going to be, oh god, what do I do now? Just go to 10-minute mail. Alright, let's just grab that really quickly. Email address, password, I will, oh yeah, if you do anything like this and you type it in, it actually doesn't, like, it won't show. So that's nice. So you can't actually see my password, huh? Okay. Now that that's done, we have created our super user successfully. Okay, so now that we've done that, we can actually log into the admin page, which we will do here. What I'm gonna do is say python manage.py run server. And you see it perform system checks, nothing is wrong. Now it should work, hopefully. Let's type that in again, and let me just fix that. Slash admin, and now we have this Django administration. So type in your username, mine I think is Billy, and then your password, which will not show, so that's great. And here you go. This is so cool. If you can see, you can probably see this Django administration website. Look at how cool it looks. You don't have to do anything for this. Django automatically created this for you. And this is where you administrate your site. So you can see right here it says welcome Billy. You can view site, you can change your password, you can log out, a lot of stuff. So here we have different parts. First we have authentication and authorization. There are different things here. There's something called users, and if you come here, it'll actually show you if you remember here we created something called super user. Here it's actually going to list all the super users. So so if you wanted to add another account so that maybe your friend could come in or something like that. Oops, that did not, I should have pressed that. Did I log in again? Slash admin. Oh, I think I have to, oh, oops, I closed my command prompt. Oh, no wonder. Now I have to redo all that. That's okay. Manage.py and run server. Okay, let's go back in here. Okay, so it actually did save. If you come to users, you can create a different user. You don't have to keep that one. So yeah, so you can create another username, and you can create a new password, and you can confirm your password and make as many super users as you want, and all the super users will be able to make changes to this. So if you come back home, okay, so we looked at this stuff. There's also this groups thing. It's not really, nothing to do here. You see this add and change, and we'll see that later. But here we have our forms database. So remember we did that admin.site.register. That's what it was for. Now we have a database forms, and it's in our administration. So I can actually click on this, and I can add a form, and then here we have our name. In this name, I can only type in something 100 letters long. I'm gonna put the name as Bob, age as, oh, we can increment it because it's an integer field. Django allows us to increment this. So I'm gonna set to 35, and then I'm going to save. So you'll see that it says name because this was that column name. It says age because that was the other column name. This has only a space of 100 because that was the max length. And this has this like weird increment thing or decrement thing, which is because it's an integer. So now we can save that, and we actually have an entry here. And if you come here, it says recent actions, my actions. I added a user called Bob to the form. And you'll notice that it doesn't say the age, it actually says the name. And the reason why it does that is because if you recall, when we were writing our templates, I said form.name. That's why that when I'm looking at it, it always comes up as a name and not the age. If I said form.age, then instead of saying Bob here, it would have said 35, and then I could see it, and I can change it, and I can delete it, or whatever. So if we press save, you'll see that it shows up as Bob, not as 35. That's because I set it to that. There's change right here. You can add a new form, and that just a really, I personally think it's just a really cool way to use databases. So you created your databases, and then you can edit them like this. You can delete users if I wanted to. I can actually delete those. I can change them. I can add them. I can do a lot with this Django Administration website. It's just created by Django itself. So that's just really cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. What we did was we created a form in the models.py, and then we added it to like a list view thing in the URLs, and then we made some migrations and we migrated it, which allowed Python to know that we need to make this form a real table. And then we went into the admin.py and we registered this database, and we did another thing called admin.autodiscover in the main URLs, and then we visited this admin page, and it allows us to do a lot of cool things like delete entries, edit entries, and make entries. So I hope you learned something in this video, and yeah, I'll see you next time.